What's up, you guys? Tomy Shaw here, and how to get 20% return on investment, okay? Bear with me. It's very easy to get 20% once you know how. You have to have open mind to understand this video, because if you're not open-minded, you're just going to pass it over and you're going to miss this opportunity. It's not really an opportunity, but it's something that can happen in your life, and I have been able to do this constantly for the last, I'll say I started in 2011, so the last 9 years I've been doing this, and it took me a long time before I could understand this information, because it's not something that is taught in school. It's not something, it's taught in maybe in university when I went to do my finance course. Okay, so I just want you to bear with me, keep an open mind. This is honest, this is true, this is something that I do all the time, okay? So the first thing you need to determine is the cap rate, okay? It could be the cap rate in real estate, it could be in a business, either way, it's the same thing, okay? So how do you determine that cap rate? You need to determine the net operating income before taxes, depreciation, and interest, okay? So the reason why we do it before taxes, interest, amortization, and depreciation is because we want to know what is the ability for this company to pay the debts, if leverage is possible. So NOI on price of asset. What is the price that you're paying for this asset? And this will give you a yield on asset. It will give you a cap rate to determine if it's a 7%, 5%. So if you're getting $100,000 on $1 million, well, that is a yield or a cap rate of 10%, okay? The second thing you need to do is determine the cost of interest and taxes. You need to know this because interest is deductible, and essentially is the cost of debt. Because if you're getting a 3% interest cost and you have a 40% tax depreciation or a tax accountability, then essentially it's going to be 3% minus taxes in your local area, okay? You have to always consult with somebody that is legal in that department, because technically, anyways, okay? So the third is leverage. Is leverage possible? Because if the cap rate is higher than the cost of money, then leverage is possible. And this is where it gets easy to get that 20%, because if leverage is possible, if the cap rate is higher than the cost of money, then you can borrow money to make money, okay? Before doing this, you really need to talk with a lot of people. Just ask them, do I have my cap rate right? Because I see a lot of people making a lot of mistakes in the NOI. They don't calculate the management fees. They don't calculate all the fees, and then it gives them like a 15% yield and return, and they're bragging about how successful they are. But in reality, when you look at their profits at the end of the year, they're losing money, okay? So you need to calculate the right way. I made a lot of videos concerning how to calculate the NOI, or how to calculate the value of a real estate property or a business, okay? So if cap rate is possible, then you have an asset return, okay, and the cost of money. What is left is for investors, okay? If you borrow money, essentially the cost of money, the return on asset, if there's a return, and the 3% goes to the debt, then whatever is left is going to investors. So the lower the cost of interest, the more goes to investors. That's why when people say that the markets are overvalued and stuff, it depends, because it depends on the cost of money. If investors are seeking 15-20% return, the only factor, there's two factors that you have to look at, is the asset return and the cost of money. And whatever how you do the calculation, you could always get a spread to get that 15-20% return. So let's look at an example. I want to give you guys, I already put in some numbers, but let's look at an example where the cap rate is 5%, and let's say after taxes the cost interest is 2%. And we want to know how much leverage do we need to utilize to get that 20% return. So you get 5%, which is the NAV asset yield, equals to ROI. The ROI is 20% minus X2, because we're looking at this number. We want to know how much leverage do you need to use to get a 20%. So in this case, if you take the calculations, it would be a 7 or a 15% down payment. Whatever you're buying, you need to put 15% down and use a 7-to-1 capital. Like that means you're using 7 times the amount of capital of debt that you have compared to your capital. So let's say you have $1 million asset giving you a 5%. That means you have to borrow $850,000 and you need to put down $150,000. Okay, maybe these numbers are really big for some people, but my goal is just to show how to make that 20%. It all has to do with how you structure the business. And I had a lot of questions concerning how to get that 20% because I've already talked about it in other videos, and I wanted to redo a video concerning more details on how to get that 20%. So let's look at it from this standpoint, okay? $1 million, 5%, that gives you $50,000 NOI. And then we already said that the cost of interest was 2%. So $20,000 on $1 million. So $50,000 minus $20,000, that leaves you with $30,000, and you had invested $150,000. So if you divide $30,000 by $150,000, that gives you an ROI of 20% before interest, amortization, and depreciation and taxes, okay? So hopefully this video makes sense. If you guys want me to go into higher details, but like in anything in life, if you want to become wealthy, you have to determine what gives you the highest return on your life. And I know this sounds simple, but sometimes we don't calculate everything. We're not taking into consideration everything that has to be taken into. Like sometimes we'll invest in stocks when we're getting a 10% or a 9% per year, and you could be getting 20% in real estate, or you could be getting 21% when you're using some other forms of leverage. And why would you be investing in something that gives you less yield for the same effort, or maybe sometimes a little bit more effort? So when I was playing this game, it's called sales, and essentially when you wanted to evolve in life, you had to take the smartest decision, and the faster you took the smartest decision, the faster you would evolve. And I was like, that's essentially the same thing in life. When you're taking the highest return for your money, you're evolving, your wealth is evolving as fast as it can be, okay? So if you like this kind of information, like, subscribe, and I'll be seeing you on the next video. Thank you.